Hi guys, welcome back. It's Donwozi here, and today I'm going to be showing you my updated Magicka Sorcerer build for the Clockwork City DLC. So first of all, I'm going to go over the fully buffed stats. So we have 50,000 max Magicka, 18.4k health, 10k stamina, 2,913 spell damage, 41.9% crit, and 961 Magicka recovery. So the boon we are using is the Apprentice. We are a stage 4 vampire, and we have all attributes into Magicka, all 64. So now I'm going to show you the consumables we're using. We are using for our potions Essence of Spell Power. So this grants you Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Major Intellect. And the reason we're using Major Prophecy on this is because we only have Inner Light, which grants you Major Prophecy, on the front bar. So when you switch to the back bar with no Inner Light, the Major Prophecy buff still retains because you have it on your potion. The food we are using is Bystat food, the blue stuff. And it increases max health by 5,395 and max Magicka by 4,936. A good alternative is the Witch Mother's Potent Brew if you struggle with sustain. It's only a bit less Magicka and a bit less health, and a small amount less DPS, but in the long run it makes you more sustainable. So in the long run you have more DPS, if you get where I'm coming from. And the other consumable we have is Double Bloody Mara, and the only reason we use this is for fights that are heavy with fire, so we're not susceptible to one shots. We reduce our vamp stage just by eating this a few times, so it reduces your vamp stage, and then just switch back to your normal food. So I'm going to show you the stats with Witch Mother's Potent Brew and a little trick that I like. So with Witch Mother's Potent Brew, we are on very low 16.2k health, 48.6% Magicka, and 10k stamina, and obviously all the rest is the same. But our Magicka recovery has gone up to 1,391. So what I like to do, because in my personal opinion I think 17k is minimum for trials. Well, it should be minimum for trials. So what I like to do is I get an infused robe of whatever gear set I'm using. In my case is Necropotence, which most pet builds should be using, and I pump that up to 17,000. Obviously you lose a bit of Magicka and a little bit of DPS, but a dead DPS does no DPS, so that is entirely up to you. If you know the fights very well, perfect down to a tree, you know every mechanic, you know when to use your shield, then by all means run 16.2k health. With Eben and all that you'll be fine, but I still like to have a little bit more health, so I use that. If not, just stick with full divines. Right, so we've gone over the consumables, we're going to go over the gear now. So as you've seen, we're running 4 Moon Dancer, an infused, got wrong one on there, an infused Inferno Staff on the front bar with a shock damage enchantment, and on the back bar we're using a Maelstrom Lightning Staff with Nirnhorn with an increased weapon and spell damage enchantment. And the reason we use an increased weapon and spell damage enchantment is because you execute on your back bar. Well, with this build we execute on our back bar, so in execute phase, most execute phases aren't very long, so the spike of power that you get from the Berserker enchant is really good for finishing fights a lot quicker. The monster set we're using is Alambris, once again, it's a given. And the 5-piece we are using is Necropotence. We've also got 3 Moon Dancer jewellery. If you're very serious about the Sorcerer, then I would bring another gear set with you, another 5-piece. If you're not too serious and you just want to get through trials, then by all means just run Necropotence, just run the pet build. But if you're serious about the Magicka Sorcerer in trials, and obviously your group wants to min-max, blah blah blah, then I would bring a 5-piece Julianos with you at all times. Just because in certain fights where your pet dies a lot, with Necropotence you're effectively not going to have a 5-piece, so you're going to lose all that damage. So with Julianos, if your pet dies, you still have a 5-piece. So all your other skills will still damage, will still do a lot of damage, whereas obviously you won't have your pet. You're going to lose a lot of damage by not having your pet, but you're not going to lose as much if you kept Necropotence on. So that's up to you, knowing the fights, etc. I just like to do that, so it's down to personal preference, and if you have the resources to be able to run 2 different gear setups. So now I'm going to run through the skills and the passives. So from the previous build we ran the clench rotation, and that was just an easier rotation to run. The crystal frag and force pulse rotation is actually the most DPS in a trial, which you probably won't see it on a test dummy, but as we all know, test dummies are not the be all and see all. They are to practice rotations. They do not represent true trials DPS, so just keep that in mind. So the first skill on our bar is crystal fragments, and aside from being a really strong proc damage, obviously look, 15.6k magic damage, it also crits, and it also activates this passive every time you use it, the exploitation passive. So casting a dark magic ability grants minor prophecy to you and your group, increasing your spell critical by 657 for 20 seconds. So effectively if you get a frag every 20 seconds, which you more than likely will, you're buffing your group's DPS. So crystal frag provides group utility. And that's why I've started to prefer this rotation and this skill setup. The second skill on our bar is our main spammable, which is Force Pulse. The third skill on our bar is the Summon Volatile Familiar Pet, which you have to double slot. The fourth skill on our bar is Daedric Prey, which buffs your pets by 55%. The fifth skill on our bar is Inner Light for the Major Prophecy and the Max Magicka. And then the Shooting Star is, the ultimate is Shooting Star. The reason we use Shooting Star is because it's really strong single target, and you also get ultimate back from using it. And also you get extra Max Magicka from the Mages Guild passives and Magicka Recovery. So to our back bar, our Maelstrom Staff bar, we are running Liquid Lightning. Strongest dot in the game by far. Also is shock damage, so it procs concussion, the status effect, and also in turn concussion procs off balance if you combo it with the Blockade of Storms. Make sure you have this down at all times, because if an enemy is concussed by shock, then Blockade of Storms will set them off balance. Off balance gives you 10% more damage, as you can see from the CP tree, for putting 75 points into Thaumaturge. Obviously we have the pet again, we have Mage's Wrath. So this morph is the best for AoE damage in trials, but if you run Maelstrom as well and you don't want to keep remorphing skills, I would run Endless Fury, because Endless Fury is best for Maelstrom. And the last skill on our back bar is Hardened Ward, our main damage shield, which we also buff with the Champion Point Tree Bastion. So the reason I'm using this over the other morph, I forget the name, which gives Magicka Recovery, is because I like to use Hardened Ward in Maelstrom, and I just never remembered to switch it. So basically, if you're new to the fights or you don't know the fights as well as you should do, then I would choose Hardened Ward over the other morph. But if you know the fights very well, you know where to stand, you know where to be, then you don't need to be as tanky. So the other morph will do you and your group better. So it's entirely up to you. And the ultimate on our back bar is Thunderous Rage. So I'm going to go over the passives now. You can skip this part, and I'm also going to put timestamps in my description, just in case people want to skip past all the fluff, all the boring bits. I just like to get everything in there, so I answer all questions. So you're going to want all the Dark Magic passives. You're going to want all the Daedric Summoning passives, and all the Storm Calling passives. You're going to want all the Destruction Staff passives, all the Light Armor passives. Because we're running 5-1-1, 1 medium, 1 heavy, you're going to want the Windwalker passive, extra stamina recovery. If you don't have the skill points, then this is not necessary, but I do have the skill points, so that's why I choose it. Same goes with heavy armor. You're going to want Resolve, Constitution and Juggernaut for extra max health, resistances and some sustain when you get hit. But as I said before, you don't need them, it's just if you have the spare skill points. We are a vampire, so you're going to want the Supernatural Recovery. This is the main part of being a vampire, for the extra recovery. You're also going to want the Undeath passive, which reduces your damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while you're below 50% health. So that's really good. It's not the main reason we take vampire. It's entirely up to you whether to take this passive. If you have the skill points, then min max was definitely worth it, makes you a bit tankier. And the Unnatural Resistances, which reduces the severity of the health recovery determined in vampire stages 2 through 4. Yeah, but it's worth taking. I also take the Fighters Guild passive, Banish the Wicked. Sometimes you're going to come across Undead and Daedra and Werewolves, so a bit of extra ultimate never hurts. You're going to want all the Mages Guild passives for extra max Magicka recovery, reduced cost of Mages Guild abilities, and this one as well, the empowerment you get from casting a Mages Guild ability, but it only affects the next direct damage attack. So it only affects the first tick of the Destro ult, the first tick of Wall of Lightning, Wall of Elements. Anything that does damage up front, that's what that Undeath passive affects. You're going to want to take the Undaunted passives, because again, we are in 5-1-1, so we get a 6% boost to Magicka stamina and health. I am a High Elf. You're going to want all the High Elf passives. High Elf is the best race for Magicka Sorcerer. And one of the most important passives is medicinal use, so I suggest you get alchemy up to 50 as soon as possible, just for this passive. When using a potion, resulting effects last 30% longer. This effectively allows you to keep the effects of your potions up 100% of the time, so I highly recommend it. So now I'm going to go over the champion points. Also, if you're using the clench rotation from last patch, which it's entirely up to you what rotation you use, I would remove all points from Master at Arms and then just split them between Elfborn and Elemental Expert, and any remainder that are not on a jump point put into Spell Erosion. So we have 40 in Elfborn, 43 in Elemental Expert, 38 in Spell Erosion, 34 in Master at Arms, 75 in Thaumaturge for the Exploiter passive, which we explained earlier on. Increases your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10%. We have 51 in Ironclad, 2 in Spell Shield, 49 in Hardy and Elemental Defender, 48 in Thick-Skinned, 31 in Bastion, 37 in Warlord, 75 points in Tenacity and Arcanist, because if you go over 75 points, it costs you an extra 25 points to get to 100, to get to 15%, and that is really not worth it. You may as well put extra points in Warlord, Tumbling, and Shadow Ward. Just a quick note on Shadow Ward, it might not seem it's on a jump point because it's 6.97%, but just remember that Shadow Ward does not have any jump points, so that whatever points you put in here, whatever percentage it says, that is the percentage you will get while blocking, so just keep that in mind. And that is the CP. So now I'm going to go over the rotation. So there's two variations to this rotation. If you're running an Asylum staff, then I would recommend running Witch Mother's Brew. But if you're running the Moon Dancer staff, then this is how the rotation would go. So you would use a potion, and then you'd use your pet pulse, just to get some initial burst off the start when the pet runs into the target. So potion, pet pulse, destro, and then light attack, liquid lightning, light attack, wall of elements, light attack, pet, swap bars, light attack, prey. If a crystal frag procs, light attack, frag, and then light attack, force pulse, switch bars, heavy attack, and then start your dots again, light attack, liquid lightning, light attack, wall of storms, light attack, pet pulse, light attack, Daedric prey, crystal frag, force pulse. If a crystal frag does not proc, then you would do 2 force pulses, switch bars, and heavy attack. If a crystal frag procs while you switch into your back bar, then you'd use crystal frag first, then your pet, and then force pulse, as it's just done then. So crystal frag, pet, and then remember, crystal frag always takes priority. So crystal frag's proc there, I will not use force pulse, I'll use crystal frag again, switch bars, and heavy attack. So just remember, when you switch to your front bar, crystal frag always takes priority over force pulse, over prey, but just always make sure that your crystal frag, then prey, and then force pulse. Make sure you always get Daedric praying. So bang, 2, and then frag again because I've had 2 procs. So that's how the rotation goes. If you have any questions at all, let me know. I'm going to show you a sped up version of this rotation. So this is how it will go. I'll take my pet off. I'm just going to let the thing drop so the pet don't run straight to it. So we'd activate as pet, and it would go potion, pet, destro ult, liquid lightning, wall of storms, pet again, light attack prey, light attack crystal frag, light attack force pulse, switch bars, heavy attack, and then back to the dots again. Then light attack prey, 2 force pulses because we didn't get a frag, heavy attack, and then same again. And then force pulse, no frag again. I'm just waiting to get a frag so I can show you what I do. Oh, crystal frag does not want to proc. There, we got a frag as we were switching to his back bar after a second force pulse. So what we do is, instead of doing Daedric prey first, we do frag. And then obviously I did Daedric prey and got another force pulse and got another frag. So I did frag instead of force pulse. But that one is entirely up to you. If you have a perfected Asylum weapon, then I would switch your food to Witch Mother's Brew. The rotation is relatively the same. So if we have an Asylum staff, we would exactly the same, just without the heavy attack. So it would be pet, so it would be potion, pet, ulti, so I'll go with the ulti, and then 3 dots, pray, and then you would go 1, 2, 3 force pulse, and then back. A full light attack rotation, 1, 2, 3 force pulse, and then if you start needing magicka, I would go 1, 2 force pulse, and then heavy attack. But just remember, when a frag procs, frag always takes priority. But if you've got a perfected asylum staff, make sure you've always done at least 2 force pulses on your front bar. So then force pulse takes priority. But in a trial you're going to have worm, you're going to have synergies coming in and etc. You're going to have warhorns for more magicka, so you will be able to sustain the Witch Mother's Brew rotation. And that was my updated Sorcerer build video for Clockwork City. If you have any questions, any things I haven't gone over in the video, just please comment. Let me know. I will get back to everyone that comments. And also thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, guys. See ya. Bye.